There we go.
You already know what it is. Welcome to 3 Degree Vibes, where real women have real conversations about life, love, career, and all the crazy ish happening in the world right now.
We're smart, we're bold, we're fly, and we say the things you're already thinking.
Oh,
So grab your drink, get comfortable, and let's get into it because we got degrees, we got opinions, and we got no filters.
that's what's up. That's what's up. Now, what you gonna say?
Period.
You have period. That's it. You got to finish it. You got to finish it up. You got to finish it. All right, y'all. All right. All right. So on our topic today, we're going to be talking about our favorite place to go, or shall I say, used to be our favorite place to go. Target, the boycott, the drama, the discourse. Is it legit, or is this another fake council moment? How y'all feeling about Target? What's going on? Are y'all aware of what's going on with Target?
Very aware.
Yes, quite aware. I'm over here in the corner, upset.
What's you upset about?
Because I was like, yeah, you know what? You don't know how hard it is to find things that you like. And there's this one label that's just in Target, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it started to be my go-to. I'm like, okay, it's got basic stuff, but basic buildable outfit building stuff. You know what I mean? But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it was made well, and I was like, oh, okay. And most of the line, I could vibe with. You know how your styles change over time and
Yeah.
everything. I got
Right.
probably a whole closet full of stuff that I should get rid of because I'm never gonna wear it again. But that particular brand, I was like, okay, I really like this. But now, of course, I I'm like, okay, so what do I do? I'm gonna have to give it. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I have abstained. I haven't gone
Mm-hmm.
since the boycott. I mean, that's another thing too. Is this a perpetual boycott now? Has it come down from on high that it is perpetual or what?
Well, I know it's pretty perpetual anytime. Check this out. Target lost over 25 billion in market value after backlash over this
Ooh.
uh, you know,
That is
boycott
not
to the
pennies.
diversity. No, that's no pennies at all. And revenue dropped from 107.4 billion to 106.6 billion in a year. So that just shows you, you know, our value as far as our monetary value and how we are as a consumer. We can hit people in their pocket. So, you
Mhm,
know, but there's
mhm.
a lot of us that, we're saying, oh yeah, I'm not going to Target, but then we're still kind of sneaking like we're creeping on that man. And we still going
Exactly.
with that red card and going on the Target. Because I think it's become like a part of our culture. You feel like it's something that you do on the weekends, things of that nature. Personally, since the pandemic, I order my stuff and it's delivered. I don't
Yeah,
know about y'all, but it has
yeah.
still been somewhat of
Absolutely.
Instacart. Yeah, I mean Instacart. It's been, I'm giving them plugs, but it's been still, a connection with Target. But how do you feel? I mean, like, Sheila, how do you feel like about this? Do you feel like, it's the real deal? Are people really done
So
with Target? Is it,
I think that for a change that um, we've actually come together and put something in place that people can actually see a tangible thing happening,
mm-hmm,
because it's not just one leader or one group.
mm-hmm,
I have seen some other people kind of joining in on this. But
mm-hmm.
something that kind of resonated with me is that I saw younger people saying, hey, I go to Target for fun. Now I'm going to use that money to invest. So just because of
Mm-hmm.
the financial situation that's going on right now, I mean, I
Right.
think investing is something smart to do.
I
Um,
think that's
but even for
smart.
the churches that have gotten on board that are saying, okay, we're fasting for 40 days, and this is
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
part of our fast. I think that speaks volumes as well. But
Wow.
nobody realizes how much our community and our economic dollars can actually make a change if we actually stick together and do something.
You know,
I agree.
I love that you brought that up because I mentioned it to my husband when it was just starting talks about the boycott, specifically at Target, and he, you know, shrugged it off like we weren't going to have any kind of effect in their bottom line. And then I was talking to somebody else, and they were talking about, I guess in some of the groups they were saying, you know, they were putting some kind of parallel to the boycotts back in the 50s and the 60s, you know, back in the South. And I was like, well, you really can't do that now because back then, I'm sure it was a much bigger impact financially than these multi-billion dollar, trillion dollar companies now. You know what I mean? But the numbers that you just said make it clear that we can make a difference. And whether or not we put a business out of business or not, we are still impacting their bottom line. And that clearly is what they focus on, you know?
Right. Right. I do agree with that. That I think it's important for us to see ourselves too, not only you know, Black people, but Latinos as well. We are the largest consumers here, and I think oftentimes, you know, it's great when we march, we do things of that nature. But I think when you really hit someone in their pocket, it speaks volumes. And I'm really disappointed, if anything, in Target because
Yeah.
I do know that they were inviting so many people of color who were creators, journals and clothing and all kind of things, and to just kind of rip them from their stores and things of that nature. I think that speaks a lot. You know, I think
Well,
during that time it was okay to bring us aboard. And now, you know, with the tides changing, I think that, you know, it just really says who's really true and who really wasn't in the first place. That's how I feel.
well, see that's the whole thing. I mean, when I first was made aware of what was going on, you know, with the whole Tabitha Brown thing and everything,
Mhm.
um, it really just it made me livid because it seemed like they were jumping off so fast, you know, like
Right.
it just seemed to me that these companies were truly not committed to this in the first damn place. They
Right.
it must have been a talking point or something, but it
Mhm.
for them to jump ship even before
Mhm.
it really came down from high that they were going to need to do that. I mean, I just it just they revealed themselves. You know what I mean? That you weren't committed
Mhm.
to begin with. You know?
Right.
I wish there
Right.
was a way that, um, I mean, great minds come up with great ideals, but I wish there was a way that Black and Latino brown people could come up with a platform that had
Mhm.
Hmm.
people that sold stuff from our community,
Hmm.
and not just be inclusive to us, but um, if we really wanted to make our dollars go back to the communities that were
Hmm.
most influenced by, I mean, the only downfall to Target, I mean, it can't just be Target. We have to do more than just Target.
Mhm. Oh
Hmm.
But
yes, Amazon.
yeah, Amazon is next. But
Yeah.
convenience of things like who wants to wait a week or
Yeah. Well,
21 days for something to come to you when you can get it in a few hours
Right.
where you live?
tell the
Exactly.
truth. I mean, okay, so okay, I don't mean to be vulgar, but I said to some close friends of mine, I'm like, they've got us by the short and curlies. I mean, just look at these corporations that have infiltrated our lives. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah.
We are used to
Mhm.
getting it tomorrow, if not today. I ordered something, this was years ago. I ordered something on Amazon and the vendor dropped it off to my house that day.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Mhm.
I mean, that's the type of microwave society we're in. We're not used to waiting for stuff. And I've bought things from overseas, from China or whatever, on those, you know, those other websites and whatever. And when I suggested something that my husband wanted, he refused to wait 30 days, just like you said, Sheila. He was like,
Yeah.
no, I'll get it from Amazon. And I'm like, well, those are the same vendors. They just happen to have stock in the Amazon warehouses, so you will get it tomorrow. And he did not care that it was going to be 3 times more than what he could have gotten it. He did not want to wait the 30 days, and he was willing to pay. So this is the way they've got us, you know.
Mhm.
I think the other important point is that when they do all kind of market research to place stores strategically, so
Mhm.
that might be the only store you have an option to go to in a certain area.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Unless it's a store that you like, yeah, I'd rather just spend my money. But the other point I want to bring into that is people basically popping up on people that are shopping in these stores, like, hey, you know what's going on?
Right.
Being here. So, I mean, I think that's really important that we're holding each other accountable, because there is so many other options, and um, to kind of get out of our own way. And
Okay.
we can
Okay,
wait.
Sheila. Sheila, let me play the devil's advocate, okay? Because
Sure.
first of all, when I heard that, well, first of all, okay, I had a friend and she said this a couple weeks, I think maybe 3 weeks ago, that
Uh-huh.
she felt guilty being up in Target and she was scared somebody was going to basically pop from behind the dresses and call her out. And I was like, you're paranoid. That's crazy. That's never going to happen. And then
Oh,
she
it's
came back
happening.
and told me that that's exactly what it is, that people are showing up, putting you on blast on camera, no
I've
less.
seen it on
And
TikTok.
I'm like,
TikTok, Facebook,
what?
Instagram, everything. They do not.
Yeah.
Um, I, and I,
But you know what? If they're going this hard, like, okay, then let's okay, we started with Target. Now what's the next victim or the
Yeah,
next?
what's next? Because you know what? Because it isn't just about Target. This is about what happens
Absolutely.
when companies make these moves, these performative moves, and
Mhm,
they don't usually stand on what they claim to support. So that's
right.
the thing about it. We can't just stop at Target. It's got to go further than that. It's got to go into, like I've said to you guys before, it has to go into legislation.
Yeah.
Enough
Oh yeah.
of, I believe in the boycotting. Yes, I do. I believe in, okay, you want to put me on blast because you caught me in Target with my red card and things of that nature. Adrienne looking for her clothes and being caught. Yeah, okay.
And
I do
her
believe in
home
that. But
decor. Yes.
yes,
All of
Yes.
that.
yes, her
Yes.
home decor.
Yes.
Yes, I understand that, but hey, let's get down to legislation. Let's put these things in order. We got to start as people of color. We have to start demanding policy changes,
And Adrian,
more
I'm gonna
committee
call you
investment.
What'd you
Adrian.
say?
I
What?
said I'm gonna call you out.
Call
We
me
were
out.
talking, we were all three of us are entrepreneurs at heart.
Yep.
Have had businesses, have sold stuff.
Mhm.
All those things you find at Target,
Mhm.
we can make them and sell them ourselves.
Okay.
I
I'm
mean,
glad I'm glad you came for me. I'm glad you came for me. Let me do this. Let me do this. Let me do this. Let me do this.
That's a
everything
whole
Okay.
that's
lot.
up in
That's
So
there
a
wasn't
whole lot of
ideal.
making. That's a whole lot of
so
making.
what? So yeah, like we're gonna make it in the first damn place. But wait, wait. So are we abandoning Tabitha? I mean, I know everybody came for her and everything, but she made some valid points to me because it's like she can't get out of there if she wanted to. She's under
And they were
contract.
blindsided. They were blindsided. It wasn't like they were told in advance and they knew it was happening and they could make
Right.
a
But
they
she
literally
cannot
found out what
bounce.
we found out.
She
Yeah,
can't bounce, Sheila. She's under contract. She will be sued. Right?
exactly. And but it's a double-edged sword, because
Right.
she's under contract, but if her stuff doesn't sell, it's out of there anyway.
Right. But this is true, but she can't self-sabotage. They'll call her on that. She might be on
Oh
the
yeah.
hook for millions of dollars. And I've worked for brands to the point where I know what it takes to get into these stores. That's why I was so pissed at Target, because I know for a fact that back when my daughter was in high school, they would have all these different releases from these different designers. I mean, I myself drove across the city to find a Target. This was last summer, to find this jumpsuit that was on special collection from Diane Fust from I can never say her last name. Furstenberg. How do you say her last name?
Rustenberg.
Yeah.
Rustenberg.
I mean, and it's a jamming jumpsuit, let me just say. But I mean,
Is it? Hold on. Is it fly?
Did you say jamming?
Is
Did
it
you say
fly?
jamming? That's kind of 1980s. Did you say jamming? Like that sound like
yeah,
19
no, but you guys, because
jamming on the one? Okay.
no, not on the one, not on the one. Okay. Anyway, Adrienne looks good in this jumpsuit for summer.
All right, Adrienne.
And I went across town because it was selling, it was sold out. So in other words, we've bought these collections, you know, we've waited on these collections, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
since, you know, for years, since she was in high school, so I know about these things. And it's like, for them to just jump off like that, it did piss me off. It really pissed me off. But another point, okay, so what do you think about this? Another point I brought up to my friend in Canada, she is really putting, the Canadians are putting the Americans to shame because they are for real.
Oh,
They took all the stuff off the counter. They're like, nope, we're not
yeah.
buying American. And
I mean, everything. They literally should have
yeah,
showed shelves with all the American products off of it.
yep. She said she went in her kitchen and looked at each and everything that was their staples and tried to discern where it came from. And if it was American, she was going to have to replace it. I mean, literally coffee, everything. Where did it come from? Because they were that conscious about it. And, but I said to her, I said, it's a little different here. Target isn't really up there. I guess they tried to be in that market, but it failed. And so they don't really, they have other options. I think it was Walmart is their low cost store or whatever. But what I'm saying is, for the economy to be in this situation, I know it's supposed to be a lot better. It just hasn't been felt. You know, for most of us, you know, with groceries, and especially out here in California, it's very expensive, gas and eggs and all this kind of stuff.
Everything.
And you know, I said these two stores that we're talking about here, I just brought up Walmart, but we're talking about Target. This is how people get by. This is how they make their budget work, or try to. And I explained to her, I said, okay, now we're looking at what, Easter, right? Easter's gonna be in a couple of weeks. Okay, so the Dollar Tree don't have everything, y'all.
They don't.
Right? So, you know what? This is how we would get by. And taking these things, these options, it's going to be hard for some people. It's going to be really hard. I mean, we're not in their pockets. We can't say if they can just all of a sudden go to other vendors.
Yeah.
You
But
know?
I'm going to be honest. I'm sorry, Sheila.
No. Go ahead.
But most people, if they are strapped, they usually go to the place I don't really like, Walmart. So I don't, because Target is on a different level than I think than Walmart. So they have Walmart to go to, is what I'm trying to say, if that's the case. If you're going to be.
Don't we have a problem with Walmart too? Walmart tripped too. They were the first ones that jumped off.
Yeah. Well,
I think that they have to be intentional, but I personally, I mean, I wasn't ever like a big. I loved going into Target, and I hated going into Walmart.
Me too.
I mean, like, there's no comparison in like the clothing, the decor, the whatever, the customer service.
Well, that's true. That's true.
No, it makes me depressed. I'm just gonna say it straight up. I walk through the doors, and the lettering, I know this sounds really crazy, but the lettering, the big 99 on the aisles, on stuff, it makes me depressed. It just, there's something about Walmart. And I'm not trying to be like this or that. No, it's just facts. It just kind of, you know, Kmart had that vibe too, but I'll give Kmart more cadence than I do Walmart. And they're always fighting, or something's going on in Walmart. I just think it's not a place of pleasure. Where Target, okay, yeah, you go in, you have the bright red colors, and that might be something psychological, you know, that you feel.
Believe me, people have probably done studies on color analysis and all that kind of great stuff. But Walmart never presented itself like, I mean, who hasn't heard of Target? There's no nickname for Walmart. I mean, you
Right.
just
Target.
like they
Well,
just say come prepared for whatever when you go to Walmart.
and then in Target now, what? It's been a few years now. Now there's Ulta in there. There are, is some more,
Starbucks,
you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Yeah.
So it,
they
and
have drive and pull up, and they'll put the stuff in the trunk of your car. You don't have to
girl,
talk to somebody.
yeah, I
I
would
mean,
do that all day, and
yeah,
I have. And
yeah.
I'm sorry, you guys. I don't know what your Walmart looks like, and I get it,
Dark,
but
old,
I don't
dark, dirty.
typically.
I've been
I
to all Walmarts.
I don't.
Okay.
We
I've been to
have
Walmarts on the
super.
West Coast, Walmart's here. It
Well,
is
I'm sorry.
Walmart.
I'm
That is
sorry.
I
I'm
mean,
sorry.
real basic,
They
real
have
no.
brought
basic.
me dog food before the dogs woke up in the morning. Okay, so.
Guess
Walmart or
we're gonna have,
Target?
she said
They dropped it
Walmart.
off. They dropped it off on the doorstep.
Okay.
All Miss Adrienne had to do was go open the door and pull it inside. I appreciate that. I don't typically go to Walmart. I don't like the whole, and I like shopping. I can thrift with the best of them, but something about going to grocery stores, that is my husband's jam. I mean, he likes reading labels and shit like that, and I'm like, let's go. Okay? Let's go. Let's get what we came for and go. So I'm happy to order online, and I've just gotten so used to doing. Plus, it
Mhm.
keeps me on budget. You walk up in there and you're typically gonna find 10 more items that or you can spend a lot more time in there than you needed to. If I can order off my list online, I can stick to my budget.
Yeah.
I'm just playing the devil's advocate here. I'm just saying that, this has become a lot of our habit and routines.
Right.
And it's
So
disappointing.
what do you think about Costco kind of stepping in to fill the void for some people?
That's fine too. And I love me a Costco.
That's my jam.
Not gonna lie, but I don't need 30 tubes of toothpaste. You
I
understand?
do. I do because you never know what's gonna happen. Okay. You gotta
Well,
prepare.
Lord, if
if I
y'all would
buy 30
listen,
tubes, I
Rod
can't buy.
during I mean, before the pandemic, she had 100 of everything.
See,
Period.
Tell him, Sheila. Tell
Period.
her.
100 of everything. And
Yes,
then
just in case. Yeah,
just in
just
case.
some. Just in case.
And
I
period.
mean, it's
Period.
fine. And I've got some outfits in there. I ain't gonna lie. And wait a minute. They were Lucky Brand. They've got some, you know what I mean? They've got some names
Yeah.
now, but
Uh, they sell really cute kids' clothes. They have their coupon. I mean, what is it? Not. I guess it's coupons or gift cards for like
Mhm.
dinners where you can buy like a
Oh yeah.
$100 card
Oh yeah.
for 75.
Hmm.
So there
Mhm.
is deals to be had.
Yeah.
Uh, and you don't
Yeah.
have to buy for 100, like especially the food. If you're like a person that can freeze stuff, that's
Mhm.
like an
Yeah.
awesome place to go.
You know what I
I,
thought you were saying? I forget which one of you were saying earlier, but to have some type of strategy. What I thought was, and I know we've done it in families for years, and I don't know how if it's going to be frowned upon for me saying this, but to have people get together and share that Costco membership, and maybe like partition off if you are buying the 30 tubes of toothpaste. You know what I mean?
Oh
You
yeah.
get 10, you get 10. You know what I'm saying? And come together like that to take advantage. But I will tell you that they have these shrimp taco kits,
Uh-huh.
and me and my husband are just in love with them. And they come with like 15 jumbo shrimp. And I mean, this was like 3 and 4 meals for us. And so it was like $15, but it was like 4 meals. And it came with the tortillas and everything. And it was like, okay, see, things like that we can get on board with.
Yeah.
But I'm just talking about the everyday stuff because, I don't even, I couldn't even store the dog food if I had to get it from there. You know what I mean? I don't even have space to store that. But I do still shop there, but we're not just talking about me. I know that, right? But
but my thing is this is that Costco is standing up for diversity, equity, and inclusion. They didn't fall back on anything.
Mm-hmm.
Costco, all in all, they're good to their employees, period. So they're fair. So when I think about my money, you know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? I would rather give my money to Costco. Yes, you do have to kind of be, you know, have to, say, okay, I'm going to put this stuff up if it's not,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have like a large family and things of that nature. But I would rather give my money to them than give it to somebody who doesn't believe it or fake the funk.
Mm-hmm.
2 or 3 years ago, they faked the funk well. And then
Mm-hmm.
now it's like, okay, forget
Yeah.
it. We're done with that. Like that
Yeah.
was, that was the thing. Because if you all remember, even so much, this is kind of off the subject, but during the time with George Floyd and everything was going on, this was before we even started to, you know, think about DEI. There were women that were approaching me, women of other races, that were saying, okay, I'm so sorry. Is there anything I
Mm-hmm.
can do to help your business? Is there anything I can help you? I want to do this. So it was a fad. You understand what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's the same thing with corporations. They just adopted this same mantra. So now
Oh
the
yeah.
tide is turned. So now we can just be ourselves.
And just move on. Yeah,
And move
no,
on.
I totally get it. You remember the signs that were out in front of people's house, and I remember taking our dog on a walk, and I mean, just about everybody's coming out their house apologizing to us for us being black, I guess. I don't know.
No
I'm
thanks.
like,
We so
I don't know.
sorry for you.
What am I,
What's the thing to make it?
I'm walking my dog here. Okay. I don't even know how to answer you. Okay. But so it's so very obvious that this was bad. You know what I'm saying? It's like now all of
Mm-hmm.
a sudden it's called to your attention. But I will say this, I have a friend and she is from another country. She's from the country of Georgia. And we're really good friends.
Mhm.
And she was watching the news. This is during the pandemic and the George Floyd stuff and the Black Lives Matter movement. And she was saying, that from her perspective, she thought, it was exaggerated the way Black people are treated in this country. And her daughter told her that was absolutely not true. She said,
Right.
"No, I've worked with Black people and I see how they're treated." And again, they originate from another country.
Hmm.
They just, a lot of times I think people come into this country and they get certain perspectives from whatever
Hmm.
communities they're in and around, right?
Right.
They don't necessarily know the other side of that, right?
Mhm.
And so I thought that was really interesting.
Right. Right. I agree. I do agree because even, I mean, I think that goes into, and that could be another topic for one of our shows, but that goes into like the media and what the media allows others to see about us and things of nature. Because a lot of people that are in, Sheila could speak from this, people that are from the continent of Africa, we, growing up, our perception, if you weren't taught or you weren't educated in knowing the truth, you would think, oh, it's, Africa is what we saw on television, the children
Yes,
with
jungle
flies and the
and
swollen
blowing up bombs.
stomachs. Yeah,
And there
our
is parts of
Tarzan.
it that are like that, but there's also parts that are more beautiful than things here in the United States. I mean,
Right.
but
And
everything
then
is
from over
perception.
there, they think that we're gangsters and stuff like that too. So it's just, is what they teach, what they want us to think of each other, think of, oh, I want you to feel like how they're treated is exaggerated. Why wouldn't I? Because then that doesn't make me look like the villain. So yeah, of course I want you to think that, okay, it's not as bad. Oh my gosh, no, that's folklore. That didn't happen to them. Oh no, they weren't chained. Oh no, they weren't lynched. They weren't maimed. No,
Yeah,
no, not that happened.
exactly.
You know.
Exactly. But that's all about rewriting history. I mean, you guys know that when we were in school, well, I don't know, maybe this was when I was in college and I was first introduced to the fact that history was written by the winners.
Right.
If you go to the losers, you might get a different version of what was actually going on.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
I mean, but that's still happening today. I mean, we
Yeah.
see somebody signing something into what they think is law, breaking laws, undoing the Constitution, and all of that stuff. But I think the
All
other
that stuff.
important thing is when we were talking about like perception,
Mm-hmm.
the propaganda that they say is basically coming through is basically teaching people like, or showing people the version that they want to see as to what's going on, people's reactions to it. And I think that that's why, I don't want to say white America, but people are like kind of like, they're really sitting this out. They really are not participating in stuff. They're really like, we tired. We don't want no smoke. We're gonna let y'all handle it. Because when they're showing all these cities that are doing the boycotts against the president, I see zero of us.
Mm-hmm.
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 Speaking volumes to me, because I'm like for safety reasons, I want us to stay so far out of what's going on and let everybody else carry the torch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think that's like innate in us, like the warrior, or I want to help, or I want to, I want to contribute. I just watched this guy. It was on TikTok, and he was an Asian guy, and he was just saying that, you know, he talks to his counterparts often, and he tells them, your success is basically off the backs of those that were in the civil rights movement, blacks. We turn our backs on blacks, but they're the reason why we're able to come here and be successful. And it's facts. The same thing with Hispanics. We what we did with the civil rights movement, the things that we endured, it helped to help to guide a path for those behind
Put
us.
people in a position to prosper.
Exactly.
Having to go through the hundreds of years of what Black people had to go through.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's sad and unfortunate that they're rewriting history so that a lot of the younger generation won't know about what happened. And it's not, and I don't think history necessarily tells a tale of, oh, it's your fault and you should feel guilty for it. But history is history. I mean, like,
That's right.
say what it is and learn from it so that you won't be back in that position again.
Exactly.
I'm gonna say this to you guys too. There's this thing too that, I know that they're removing books, educational system, they're, demolishing certain programs, things of nature, but it has to go back to the home where we have to start teaching our children, our grandchildren, our nieces, our nephews at home. That's important. And it's spoken word means everything. Storytelling. My grandmother and grandfather would come over on Sundays and talk to me and tell me stories about the things he endured in Mississippi, things that what he channeled. Those stories stay with me forever, so much that I listened, and then maybe my cousin didn't hear that same story, but I could share that story with my cousin, things of that nature. So you have to try to get back to the old. We're so inundated with this new thing, like
Swipe up, swipe left, swipe right.
Yes, go fast.
2 seconds of attention.
Yeah. So I think we got to get back to those old ways of being, and especially now, because when you are a mighty race that's trying to be erased, you have to come with your own ways of being retaliatory without being violent, and doing what they expect you to do. And that's from using your mind and your grit and doing things differently that they can't take from you, that they can't rip from you. So I can go on and on, but I ain't gonna go on no more.
But you know what? So one place, I mean, libraries might even be a place where they try to get books out of. I know that schools are really important, and now that the Department of Education is on. I mean, I know this is kind of turned political, even though it has everything to do with Target and Walmart and everything else. But showing up in places and letting kids have access to our history, our information, our legacy, our ancestry, like that's so important. And I have, he's not so little, but a 15-year-old, but from day one, he knew where his father was from. He knew stuff about the country that his dad is from, because to me that was important. Like, of course, learn about the United States, whatever. But more importantly, even though his dad did not teach him, and not out of, I don't even know why really, but not out of like, oh, I don't want him to know that, but more out of, they feel so grateful to come here to America. But they don't, I mean, like, they're like, oh, if I grew up in America, I would be so rich right now, or I'd be so, no, you'd be the same like we are. We out here take it, we trying to hustle, because the cards aren't stacked for us like that. But I think that just inclusion into, like, don't just want to learn about your culture or your upbringing. The good thing for me, when, I mean, I got to live in Europe when I was in elementary school. So, and growing up all over the country, you know, Arizona, Texas, Oklahoma, Georgia, you know, I've got to see half of the United States before being a teenager. So I think that that makes a big difference, being exposed to different things so that you have a different perspective on things in general.
Well, you know, I want to circle back to something you said a minute ago, and then I'd like to get back on the boycott. But you guys brought up something really important here. I think that not only do we have to tell our history to our children and to our grandchildren, but we could start that with just our family history. You know, I went back. I think it was the end of the summer. I can't remember, for a cousin's funeral services in North Carolina, and that night I set up with my other cousin, and we just poured over family records, and you know, because I, you know, so interested in this stuff, I knew how to go back and try and search censuses, and found a lot of information. But what I'm getting to is, we had a me and my cousin, we have a great grandfather who, and this is just one great back, who was integral in that community. He started a school, schools named after him. And years ago, the school burned down. Do you know they still named the development that has since changed owners and hands? They still named the development after him. And the reason why I bring this up is because many in our own family didn't know his story. And not only that, the people who were honoring him, they didn't even know that the family still existed in the area. And it took a cousin's husband, not even, you know, part of the family, to reach out to them and say, hey, we're still here. And so, you know, this is the type of stuff that can get lost. And I understand why. I understand the struggle, and I understand that a lot of that was very painful. So people stopped talking about their own history. But it can get lost even in our own families.
That's
And,
true.
you know, I think that's where we can start. We can start by saying, hey, look, you know, this is our ancestor. This is somebody I knew even. You know what I mean?
I believe that that's very important, because especially for young men today, if they know where they come from, if they know, okay, this was your grandfather, or this was your uncle did this,
Right.
or your cousin did this, and that is a sense of self-pride that nobody can take away from, because it's direct. It's not it's great when you open up the books and you read about W.E. Du Bois and things of that nature. That's
Right.
great. Of course, that's going to ultimately take you to another plateau. But when you know it's somebody that has the same blood as you,
Right.
it's a different
Oh
type
yeah.
of thing. And those stories, like there's griots that come all the way from Africa, that's all they did, storytelling. They couldn't write
Mhm.
things down. It was against the law to write and read. So
Right.
those
Yep.
stories had to be passed down by spoken word. So we
Right.
have to get back to those things instead of thinking about Megan Thee Stallion and buying Jordans and doing all of this stuff. Sit down with your kids. You have to change the
Mhm.
trajectory. And
Mhm.
and I'm an older person now. I know I don't sound like it, but
You're older?
oh
Are you
yeah,
are you
Who are
old?
you talking about?
I know that's right.
older,
Well, she gonna be the oldest one up in here, I guess.
And I'm the
'Cause,
youngest. Hello.
and I don't know about that
I'm older
either, but
too. But no, just to say, if there are some younger, people that I'm sure that are listening, and this is like, I'm not saying auntie, I'm your older cousin. I say no auntie, but I'm your older cousin. You know, instead of buying the things like, it's okay for kids to have things, that's fine, but you got to get back to the basics because this is more than just a physical war. This is mental, boo. You
Oh yeah.
gotta amp up if you want to be baller in a different kind of way.
Mhm.
Start a different way of doing things, and I just think that that's necessary. It didn't fail our ancestors, so it can't fail us. So just it worked for them. They endured, they prospered, things of that nature. So you have to try to implement those same things into your livelihood. I just think that's important.
Well,
I
what you
think
just
that that's
said,
important.
it just speaks right back to this whole boycott issue, right? Why is it
Right.
important? For all the reasons that we just brought up in the history. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
this is about being respected in the community. This is
Mm-hmm.
about, I mean, seriously, when you look at the numbers that you're saying, Target's being impacted by the lack of sales and this boycott movement, it is about those same things. It's about being respected in your own community and
Mm-hmm.
not exploited. I mean, that's kind of what it felt like. It's like for you guys to just pull that away, it doesn't seem like you were committed to it at all. And it sounds like you were really
Mm-hmm.
just exploiting the issue to begin with.
Right. Right.
So I want to say this. So one of the biggest people out here that's kind of pushed Donald Trump in this way, um, Elon Muskrat, and his
Oh my God.
little stuff that he's doing. And so somebody that's here on an extended visa that overstayed his welcome,
Hmm.
somebody that has the mindset for Black people to be beneath and not above,
Mhm.
because that is just the way that South Africa was run.
Mhm.
And even now that they're not in that way, there's still so many things going on. But for him to be in a position to ruin people's lives basically and have no accountability for it, that goes to show like even more why we should pull together, use our resources, and not be dealt the hand, or the hand that dealt to us, not just accept that, you know,
Right.
Yeah.
position that, we're not, yeah, we're teaching kids like, okay, yeah, you gotta look nice, you gotta look professional, but learn them, learn, teach them from the beginning how to
Right.
save, how to invest in things,
Mhm.
Right.
you know, do something in your community that's going to make a difference. Because sometimes we're like me, we're talking, but other people might just be, have great ideals and they just don't have a outlet to be able to vocalize things that are on their mind or things they want to talk about.
Right.
Put things in place so that, maybe have a community day when people are expressing their ideals about, their values, something from their country or from their where they grew up at or their values. Unfortunately, Americans have a disconnect, like, oh, I'm not from Africa, I grew up in South Carolina. But if you talk to an Irish person, an Italian person, even if they've been here for hundreds of years, they're still true to their country, their upbringing, their family values from hundreds of years ago. And I wish we could get on that kind of mindset that we were embracing Africa and what other countries that we're from.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there'll be more boycotts going forward, you all, and I just think that my, final comment on this takeaway is that we hold brands accountable, you know, in the way that they treat us. This is
Mhm.
affecting not only just the business owners and brands that are within Target, but it's also affecting their employees. You're
Mhm.
taking away these programs, things of this nature. And it's not just them, it's many others that are
Right.
on the list. There's small businesses that are doing the same thing as well. So, it's just something that has been called to our attention. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's gotten the publicity because it's backed by, preachers and things of that nature. But we have to have a movement on a daily basis in order to see change. And that's like Sheila said earlier, taking money and saying, okay, well, the money I was going to use to go on a shopping spree at Target, I'm going to use that to invest in this, or I'm going to use that so I can start this business, or I'm going to use that so I can go on and get my 501c and start this
Right.
nonprofit.
Right.
We have to start being strategic and looking in higher realms, because when it comes down to it, it's not about black, brown, white, red, yellow. It's about green, straight
Mhm.
up. Okay.
And period.
Period. That's where it's
Period.
coming down. It's coming down to just the green. It's the
And can I
have and
say
have.
one more thing about the stores? Um, how it affects the employees at the stores. I don't work for Target, Walmart, Dollar Tree, Safeway, whatever store. I don't want to be a cashier. And if I am, when is payday and
Mhm.
where are my
Mhm.
benefits?
Yep.
I don't self checkout. If there's a line with
Okay.
a
Mm-hmm.
line with the person in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, that should be our next topic, because that's trying to replace humans. So that'll be our next. Maybe we have that as that's like our next topic. You know.
There it is. There it is.
All right,
Yeah.
so we end our show. We end our show on 3 degrees. So let's. What is your takeaway, Miss Adrienne?
We got work to do. We have some perpetual work to do, and but that we can all make a difference if we do this work. If we stay committed and do find other ways to you know, it didn't just start yesterday that we started buying from these brands, and it's going to take time, but with commitment we can make another way, especially
Mm-hmm.
if we're not being respected, if we're not being valued, if our dollars are not being valued. So that's my takeaway.
All right, Sheila, your takeaway, 3 degrees.
My takeaway is that we're stronger together. But I definitely feel like people need to start utilizing their communities as a base of putting stuff together to make a more global difference, not just like we said, we see the targets and stuff, but if you can make a difference in your community, then that spreads.
All right.
Mhm. Love it.
And
And
my
your
takeaway,
take?
my takeaway is this, like I said before, this isn't just about Target. We have to
Mhm.
start thinking about collectively what we're going to do for ourselves, for our own, for our legacies, for our children. And it's coming down to not just diversity and equity, it's coming down to food equity, inclusion, community, things of that nature. So we have to continue to think outside the box and be strategic in this. This is not something, it's not 1988. some of you guys probably weren't born, but it's not that time. It's not that time.
I was a baby.
It was it's a whole nother world. So my takeaway is, continue to boycott, continue to resist, but be strategic in everything you do on a daily basis.
Love it. Yep.
All right, y'all. So, want to close us out, Adrienne?
No. No, I can close this out.
All right, y'all. So that's a wrap for today's conversation. Whether you're boycotting or just paying closer attention to where your dollars go, the real power is in how we move collectively. Are we just reacting, or are we being intentional with how we invest in ourselves and our communities? That's the real question. And if you got thoughts, we want to hear them. Are you participating in the boycott? Do you think this will make a real impact? So hit us up in the comments and let us know how you're feeling, what you're doing. And while you're at it, drop your favorite Black-owned brand so we can make sure our money stays where it's valued. Make sure you're following, sharing, and tapping in for the next episode. Until next time, stay aware, stay intentional, and stay in your bag. See y'all soon.
Love it.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.